Okay, so right now we are programmatically setting our text to LOL, proving that we have our text controller that can do something. He has access to that text mesh. So one of the things we should be kind of seeing by now is this idea that any game object has a collection of components. These components can do different things. We can programmatically access those components by looking at the script and asking that script to get the component of the guy to which in which the script to get the guy that the script is attached to. That's a dangling preposition. To which the script is attached. Nailed it. All right. So in any case, once we get this text mesh, then we can do stuff with the text mesh. Now, we don't want to immediately change the text, but we probably want to go ahead and maybe zero it out so there's nothing in the text because Gabriel hasn't started talking yet, right? But now Gabriel is going to have a conversation with our main player. Okay, our main player is going to be Mary in this case, right? So if it makes us feel better, we could actually name our, we can come in here, we can say this is Mary. All right, so he needs to know about Mary because he might need to do stuff relative to the position of Mary. I want to see something here real quick. I want to make sure that this object changes, not just the guy inside in terms of his the transform. I believe it will. Yep, we see the Z up there on the right. It's changing. So the top level of the Mary object does move through the world, even though technically the first person camera is associated with this guy, because when I click on it, this is actually a camera. See how you see the camera preview here? So, but it is the Mary moves here. So Mary actually has this component called text. Now, one thing I'm not sure of, and I want to test this, is if I send a message to Mary, will Mary send that same message on to all of her children? I want to know if I can have Gabriel send a message to, update the text, save the text. So if I were to come in here to, this is my text controller, and we're going to go ahead and we're going to create a function. So it's going to be a public void update text. That was lowercase. And then we'll say this.tm.text is equal to s. All right, so this function, whenever it gets called, we're going to pass in a string to update the text to, and then we're going to update the text. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to let Gabriel know about Mary, not Mary's text. And then I want to try to send a message to Mary that says update text, passing in a new string to update. And see if that message goes from Mary, and Mary passes it down to all of her children. Because in here, Mary has two children, a camera and then this text. So my hope is that Mary receives the message, update text, passes it on to her two children. This guy doesn't have any scripts associated with him. This guy has one script associated with him that happens to have an update text method in it. So I want to see if it gets there. All right, so in the Gabriel script, we need to know about our player. So we're going to say public game object, maybe call it Mary instead of player, just to be a little more personal with it. Okay, so Mary is the game object with whom Gabriel is interacting. So let's go ahead and connect that up here. So I'll go back to Gabriel here. And here's the Gabriel script that's now expecting a Mary game object. I'll go ahead and drag that game object over here. So there we go, there's Mary. Okay, so now When Gabriel comes down, so maybe when he gets summoned here, oh, we were going to fix his position, right? Shouldn't the Y? Well, that's interesting. That should be where he starts off.
Right. Well, are we starting off all the way over to the side?
Well, let's test this real quick since we're halfway down this logic of the send message thing, and then we'll fix Gabriel. Okay, so Gabriel now knows about Mary. When Gabriel is summoned, we've seen that he does get summoned. He's just summoned in the wrong position, right? We'll go ahead and say this dot Mary dot send message update text. I want to just confirm that that's the name of the update text is the name of the message, name of the function. Does take a string as a parameter, so I'm then also going to pass it the value that this guy takes. I'm allowed to pass in one parameter. Okay, and let's just say hello. So Gabriel's going to say hello to Mary, and hopefully when Gabriel sends the update text message to Mary, what happens is Mary then passes it on, first tries to send it to her scripts, like this first person controller script, but then also sends it to her children for them to possibly deal with it. I don't know if that's what happens at this point. Now, I do actually think there might be a this dot Mary dot, is there another send message upwards? What does that do? Calls the method name on every mono behavior in this game object and on every ancestor of the behavior. Yeah, so we want to go, our preference would be downward, right? Yeah, so my guess is then that maybe send message by default does go downward. That's my hope. Otherwise, it's not. I mean, we can fix it. It just maybe makes a little bit less sense. Okay, so let's see if when Mary triggers the thing, Gabriel gets summoned, Mary then receives the message. That message is going to be hopefully in Mary's text controller, which will set the text to whatever message was sent. Let's see if she gets a hello out of this. She did not. And just to make sure that it's working, go back into the Gabriel script. And actually, with this in mind, I'm just going to do this. For Gabriel, I'm going to say Mary is, the representation of Mary is actually the text. That's the game object, the 3D game object, that is the text. So now it should show up because that's the guy who actually gets the, let's just make sure it's working at all. All right, so there's the hello. All right, so it does not pass to the children, not the end of the world, but so my feeling is that to give ourselves the most flexibility with maybe where we're going here, let's go ahead with the Gabriel script. We'll have Mary, and we'll also have a public game object Mary text. Now, one thing we could actually do here, I think this will work. Well, let's do this first, and then I'll show you a singleton thing at another time. All right, so we're going to have two game objects come in here, Mary and Mary text. That way we have Mary, physically Mary, so we know the location of that, and then Mary's actual text. So it's actually going to be Mary text we're going to send the message to here to update that text. Okay. And then let's go hook those up. So here's our Gabriel thing. Now it takes two. So we'll drag Mary in for Mary. We'll drag the text in for Mary text. Okay. So now we have those two separate things, and we should get the hello now. Let's just confirm we didn't break anything there. There's the hello. Maybe I need to make that hitbox a little bit bigger, but all right. So now let's find out why Gabriel isn't really doing what we want him to do. All right, so let's start off by not banishing Gabriel. Make sure he starts off where we want him to start off. Okay, yeah, he's over there. That looks good. All right, and then when we banish Gabriel, what do? Gabriel sets his position equal to his hidden position. And what's his hidden position? I just want to try something here. It might have something to do with doing, this is actually a vector 3 math, even though y should just be a float. Let's just set it equal to 1,000 instead of add 1,000 to it. So this is on the position y.
But if they're both in the start, which one is getting called first?
Oh.
That's why I think it might be better to have Gabriel banish himself.
Yeah, that's a excellent point, actually. In fact, I'm pretty positive that's what was happening. So let's just test it like this. This should not fix it then. And I think that would, I don't know if that 100% proves your position, but I suspect you're right, actually. What he's saying here is that we have a battle of the starts. So we have a Gabriel who owns this script. And then we got a pile of wood that owns this script. Well, the pile of wood script in its start was sending the message banished to Gabriel, right? Now, Gabriel's script actually sets Gabriel's positions in start. Whose start gets called first? Does Gabriel get banished before he knows where he's supposed to go? Or does he know where he's supposed to go before he gets banished? Appears to me he's getting banished first, then updates that. So I went ahead and I set it just equal to 1,000 to test this. I think this should break similarly. This should still be broken. But this will tell us whether it's accumulating effect or oh. Why is he still there? I did banish him, right? Oh, it is the out of order. Because when I said his hidden position is actually the original position. It's probably happening before I said it. They're probably happening alongside each other, but it just happens to be before we actually changed this to 1,000. So then what you want to say is you want to do this. You want Gabriel to banish himself, like you said before. So when Gabriel first comes into existence, he banishes himself. Go ahead and remove that message from here. That way we've guaranteed that Gabriel kind of sets up his positions before banishing, and then he banishes himself. And then the firewood can summon him back. All right. Yep. Good call. Yeah, it's actually an excellent point you made. And those are things we have to worry about. Not just, I mean, last time we talked about like with these update methods, you know, every single time update's being called, there's, you know, that's performance, right? We're using some CPU cycles and things like that. But also, if we're wanting to instantiate, you know, when Gabriel in this case first gets instantiated, he's getting instantiated alongside all the other things we have on our scene. And if you start having objects that are reliant on each other from a for getting things done perspective, we start having an issue. Now, one thing we could do, if you need to have, so this kind of comes back to an operating systems concept called inter-process communication. So we have multiple processes that need to talk to each other, and sometimes they need to kind of coordinate where one can't move forward until another one has finished its task. We could have Gabriel send a signal. So if we're thinking about it from an operating systems perspective, Gabriel can send a signal to everybody else, letting them know that that he's completed his his positions on the screen, and therefore you can go ahead and banish him, something like that. You can free them up to do those things. And our means for signals in this would be through the send message routine. That's how we send information between processes, which in this case are game objects. Make sense? Okay, so now we don't want Gabriel to just say hello. We want Gabriel to spit some text back. So let's go back here to our text. Let's see. Greetings, you who are highly favored. The Lord is with you. Okay, so this is what Gabriel will say to Mary. Now, realistically speaking, we're going to have kind of some back and forth text, right? Now, we can make this hard-coded, right? We can go in and we'll just write it here real quick. So we'll go into Gabriel's script. And when Gabriel is first summoned, rather than saying hello, Gabriel will do this whole big greetings thing. And let's see if make sure that wraps reasonably and that kind of stuff. But because we're probably going to have quite a bit of dialogue in our games, we want to have some sort of mechanism for playing out dialogue in some sort of reasonable way. All right, so there's one example. So greetings, you who are blah, blah, blah. Can't even read all the text, right? So notice that the text actually starts there in the middle and is not necessarily centered. So let's come back here. Let's look at our text mesh. I'm going to choose alignment. Well, the alignment is left. That's interesting as to why it was. Okay, I have a 0 in it first, so that has the 0. So that's that's the left position of it. So I actually need to move my character until that guy gets onto the left-hand side of the view, because that's the left justified. Okay, we're better. More of it's on the screen. So now we want to think about how can we make more fit onto the screen at one time. You know, we need to start looking at carriage returns and stuff like that. So after favored, it looks like we could do a carriage returns. Let's come back into our script here. So we can go ahead and do a \n. Let's see if that translates into our text. Okay, It does, but we've lost a little something with the horizon there, haven't we? So maybe change the color of our text. Maybe go to like a black text, or
Yellow with a black outline.
is that, do we have,
That is like always readable.
do we have an option of that? I don't think we have an option of that.
Well, at least the yellow. That's golden yellow.
So something like that.
Yeah.
I don't think that's necessarily any better. So maybe, yeah, but I mean, it still isn't necessarily going to fix it because of that, the brightness.
Can we put a background on it?
Possibly. But I'm not sure that's what we want either, because then you're going to block some of the visuals
Right.
of the
Or
screen.
if we have two texts, one on top of the other.
Well, but that only helps for 2 lines. What if we need to go 5 lines?
So like, so that one's a shadow of the other.
I get what you're saying.
Implement the outline that way.
I understand what you're saying.
Better to just have one color. Just do black there.
Let's see what black looks like. Let's start with that. And okay. We might want to move it up in the screen view anyways, just in case we do have more lines. I mean, at some point we're going to have to limit how much text we can give them at once.
And then on a button press, move it, and scroll to the next text.
That's true. I guess you could have a ... or something like that where you have to press something else.
Yeah.
Okay, well, it can't be the space bar because that's jump for our first-person shooter. All right, so greetings. You are highly favored. The Lord is with you. Okay, so how do we indicate to the player that they need to press something to move forward? Because we want to give some sort of indication. Probably when we're in VR, maybe they'd hit the trigger or something like that to kind of progress the text, kind of like I'm done reading, right? So how do we notify them visually that they need to do something to keep going? Go ahead.
Can't you sort of do like what some like video games do, where once it's done, it shows you like the button you're supposed to hit?
Okay, so for us, it might not be a button that we actually physically hit, but we know it's going to be a call to action that we need to do something. So we're going to kind of pop something up with some text on it that maybe says, maybe we say now press trigger to continue, and maybe trigger for us is T, just to we can name code our things. Where would it be on the screen? Remember, we're going to have text all here in our face.
If we're sorry, go ahead.
It's an infinite loop.
If we do pop it up as an icon, I'd say probably in the lower right or lower left corner.
Okay.
The optimal placement.
What do you think?
I would set up another text mesh in front and have that text set right there, and then we can just turn it on or off. And then whenever we know we have more text to send, turn it on. And that way we don't have to worry about trying to fit it in the same text mesh and where is it going to end up on the screen and all that stuff.
Okay.
If we put a second one and then just either hide or show it, I think that might work best.
Okay. So you want to have, so this guy's the actual text, and then you want to have another text that's maybe called
More text.
well, maybe called command text.
Sure.
Yeah, because it's something telling the player what to do. So we'll create some new 3D text. All right, and what I'm going to do to start with is I'm going to put, well, actually, let's just do this. Do we say press trigger to continue? Or just have it say press trigger?
Put the T in quotes. Or in parentheses. Capital T.
That?
Yeah.
All right. You want to say to continue on it? Okay. And we'll make this guy similar to this one in that his, 001 and 150.
I would scale it down even more because we don't need it to be, because that text was fairly large.
Yeah, so maybe make it 100. Let's just see what that looks like. So one thing we can do, I'm going to go ahead and put it in the same place as the current text. So, because right now it's in a different location. So I'm going to click on text. I'm going to come to this little gear here. I'm going to say copy component. Then I'm going to go to new text, hit the gear. I'm going to paste component values. So that'll put it in the same exact place. They should be overlapping each other now. Okay. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and actually lift that text up and probably center it. I'm thinking kind of put it at the top of the screen.
Oh, okay. It'll be on top of Gabriel then?
Not in type of Gabriel. It'll be in our upper vision.
Like the one we're looking at, it'll be on top of it.
Only when, because I'm assuming we're going to make this disappear after it's told us to progress. We could always move it. Let's just see what it looks like. So then we're going to call this guy command text. All right, so let me get straight on to that. Let's move it up some. How does that look? That's off the screen. Let's move it down some. How does that look? Still off the screen. Down a little more. It's lost. Okay, there we go. We're back on the screen now. So we're going to call this 1.7. Yeah, 1.6. And then move it over. Oh, that is move it further away. We need to go up like this. $2.5. That look. And then we need to make it a little higher, 1.8. Well, actually, it's the Z. So if we make that like 2 and leave this as 1.6. I still think it should be a little higher than that. Although, I guess no, because that is above our text.
Yeah.
That'll be above our line for our text. And then what color do we want that warning to be? Red? Green? Green means go?
Green. green, the color of the A button.
Okay, like a lime green like that. So it should be there all the time right now. Okay. So now what we're going to do is we want that guy to turn off. So we have these things called renderers. Okay. A renderer is something that shows something. Now, if I click on my command text here, I know we're currently running. But if I disable the mesh render, it turns off. Okay. So I want that mesh renderer disabled by default. Or at least it should become disabled when the game first starts, from Mary's perspective. But this we need to be able to turn this guy back on. So now we have to start thinking about the mechanic for doing dialogues. I don't think what we want to do, we don't want to have this like back and forth between the Gabriel and the Mary object, where Gabriel says one thing, then we click the thing, and Mary says something back. Then Gabriel says something else. You know, that we're having this weird back and forth. I think we need kind of a controller for dialogue. We need a scene controller. Okay, and so this is kind of where singletons come in. So in this scene, we're going to have a guy that's kind of in charge of a lot of stuff. And it might be the scene controller that's actually in charge of presenting things to different people. And one of these things might be the dialogues. So let me stop this here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually create an empty object here in the scene. All right, and I'm going to call this guy scene controller. Okay? He's in charge of global things that have to happen in our scene. Now, we're probably going to have to give him a script to do something, right? So let's go ahead and create a script. We'll call this guy scene controller. All right. And we'll go ahead and we'll drop that script here into our scene. Now, for the dialogue, we need to go ahead and have at the very least, the dialogue needs to know about Mary's text, and Mary's other text. Okay, you got to know about all the texts, and then that scene manager scene controller is probably going to keep all the dialogues. We're probably going to have the dialogue stored as an array. Okay, so here are the messages that are going to go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And we might also put into that array, we might do this as a parallel array, who is saying it. Because maybe we change the color of the text depending on who's currently saying it. You know, so maybe Gabriel's text looks one way, and when Mary is replying to Gabriel, it looks like something else. Yeah.
Is there a way to change the certain characters in the text, or is the text mesh, the 3D text, is that all one color can you change word by word?
I don't think so, but there might be a way to do it. I don't think there is, though. Yeah, I'm not sure. So I think the easiest way is just to either just have a slightly different color, where eventually Mary starts learning that her text is always in one color, and then whoever else is talking to her, their text is in the other color. So then she can kind of keep track of the back and forth. All right, so in this scene controller, this guy, I want to go ahead and I want to make my public objects for Mary, then the Mary's text, and then command text. So we're going to have public game object Mary, public game object, Mary text, public game object, player command text. All right. Then we're going to have some private variables. We're going to need the text mesh associated with the Mary text. So we're going to have private text mesh, Mary text TM, private text mesh, player command text TM. And then we need to go ahead and actually set those variables up, right? So we're going to say this dot Mary text TM is equal to this dot Mary dot get component. Which component? Actually, it's not Mary. It's Mary text. Get component text mesh. All right. So we're going to go ahead and set the text mesh associated with Mary's text to be Mary's text get component text mesh. Similarly, we'll say this dot player command text TM is equal to this dot player command text dot get component text mesh. And then we'll go ahead and hide the player command. So this is going to be this dot player command text TM dot get component mesh renderer dot enabled is equal to false. In fact, maybe we want to actually store that mesh render in a variable. That way we don't have to do this big long call thing. So for the command text, let's say private mesh renderer player command text rend. Say this dot player command text rend is equal to player command text text mesh. It's actually just player command text. This is the player command text component. That's mesh renderer component. Let's go back out here and we'll click on Mary. Here's the command text, and see we have a mesh renderer here. So we're asking the command text itself for its mesh renderer, just like we asked the command text itself for its its text mesh. Okay, so now we have the renderer, and then we'll go ahead and hide this dot player command text rend dot enabled is equal to false. So that will hide it from us. All right. At the same time, let's go ahead and clear the Mary text. So this dot Mary text TM dot text is equal to the empty string. All right, so this is on our scene controller script, which we're going to attach to our scene controller game object. And now we're going to take away all the management of these text things away from all these other objects. and we're going to have all of them go through this center guy. So let's just get everything turned off by default. So before I go any farther, here's my text controller. This guy is currently setting stuff up. In fact, I actually think we can just dump this text controller. So I'm going to get rid of it from here. I'm going to come to text here. I'm going to get rid of it from here. And then just so we don't run into issues and forget why it was there, I'm going to get rid of it from here. We no longer need that script. We're doing it a new way now, right? We have our scene manager or scene controller. He's in charge of managing the text stuff, okay? And then similarly, let's go back into let's go into our scene controller. So this guy needs to have the ability initially to update text, right? So we're going to say, well, let's just get it turned off first, then we'll come back. So let's just make sure that he currently has an empty text field. And he has nothing. Did we add that thing to our actual scene controller? Oh, we did, but we didn't let him know about any of the objects. All right, so there's Mary. There's Mary's text. Yeah, I know. No. Scene controller. There's Mary's text. And then here's the command text. You can do it. That was weird. Okay, so it's in there now. So this guy knows about all those different objects now. Everybody understand why it didn't work a second ago? That script didn't know about those objects. I wrote it to have all these public things in here, right? Let me know about Mary, Mary's text, player command text. So I'm making all these assumptions about their existence in here, but I never actually connected them. I never drugged them over to those public variables. Now they should be there. And our current text is gone. Okay? So now what we want to do is we want to have Gabriel be able to deliver some information to our player through the scene manager. So we're going to go back into our scene manager here, and we're going to go ahead and we're going to say public void update text string s. We're going to say this dot Mary text tm dot text is equal to s. So that'll put it on the screen. And then we'll also say this dot player command text ren dot enabled is equal to true. Kind of giving us that information that we need to, to progress, do something. Go ahead.
I think eventually we'll need to put that as a separate function because not all the text is going to need a command with it.
Mm-hmm.
So enabling it and disabling it separate from the text.
Yep, you're right. Although we might want there to always be a command, especially until we get voice in there. That way they have time to read it and they can click to the next. They can click to the next like a slideshow, that type of thing. But I think you're right. It might be a situational thing whether we want it to have it or not. So this will update the text and get stuff in there. But now Gabriel, when he gets summoned, he needs to be able to call this guy. Okay, he needs to be able to access this function. So how do we do that? Okay. Well, how does Gabriel know about this guy? Do we have to let Gabriel know about our scene controller?
No, you can just send a message.
Okay, so let's go into Gabriel's script. So right now, Gabriel isn't, let's see, Gabriel has Mary's text, so we're going to take that out, right?
Yes, then it does.
And there's his banish. We're not sending the text to Mary. But let me do something here. What if I say scene controller? That's the name of a script, right? I can't send a message to a script, but
You can call the method right there.
can I? What was it called? Update? Why can't I call that method?
Is it private?
Not private. What kind of method is this? Cat, dog, static, or not static? Not static. What does it mean for a method to be a non-static method? It's owned by the instance of this object, right? So when I say scene manager script, I'm talking about the one and only script. So if I want to be able to call this function, I would need to put static in front of it, right? But what will break then? If I put static in front of this, what breaks now? These guys. Okay, why do these break? If I make this function static, what's wrong with those guys in there?
This is supposed to go.
Yeah, okay, so you're right, they're not static. So why is that a problem?
Because which one is it talking to?
Well, what is this?
Current within the
What's the definition of the this variable?
Specific instance.
So this is how an object refers to itself from within itself, right? So if I'm in a static, what's usually called a static context, okay, if I'm in a static context, does the variable this even exist? So how do I access Mary text and player command text? They would need to be static. Well, this is disastrous. Do we have a trick?
But we only want to have one instance of them.
You're right.
It wouldn't hurt to make them static.
Except I wouldn't be able to drag them in then. What could I do with this? I'm going to leave this non-static. Let's assume I made a public static game object called the instance. And then inside of start here, I said scene controller dot the instance is equal to this. It's probably this dot game object will give me the actual game object. So now, from within the start function for my instance, I'm setting a static variable. I'm letting scene controller know about the instance of the game object that this scene controller script is attached to, which then would allow me to say scene controller dot the instance dot send message. Does that make sense? Okay. So, and he can get the message update text. So that's back in Gabriel, right? So scene controller dot the instance dot send message Let's just do that. See how we kind of hacked that? We let the script know about the instance that owns the script. And we made that guy static. So we kind of gave ourselves a little shortcut to the instance. We know it's only going to exist once. So we kind of built our own inter-process communication doing this. So now Gabriel will be able to talk to Mary's text boxes. Make sense? All right. Questions about any of that? All right. Let me see where I saved this. I guess for right now, well, let's see. I think I put it in there because I want to give you access to this project. That way you can kind of look at some of the scripts and mess with stuff. And so it's in my Dropbox. Who? Oh, why did I go there? Oh, here's the folder. So this is in Unity VR, and this is Birth of Jesus Bible VR. So I'm actually going to right-click on this folder, and I'm going to say copy Dropbox link, and then I'm going to paste that into Slack. And I think that should give you access to the folder. All right? So keep working on your project. I will see everybody next Thursday. Hey! Give me 5 more seconds. I'll see everybody next Thursday. Remember, if you want to do the hackathon, I need to know by tomorrow. Okay? That means you're committing to travel with us a week from tomorrow and spend the weekend in Champaign, Illinois. It won't cost you anything. Okay? It's free, but you need, if you're going to tell me you're going to go, I need to know for sure you're committed to go. We're going to be leaving around 5 p.m. on that Friday because I'm going to be arranging vehicles to drive people down. Okay? So don't tell me you're going to go and then bail. Make sense? So send me a private message on Slack if you want to go, and I'll make sure you get on a team. It does not matter what your programming background is. If you feel like you're a weaker program and you want to learn, join it, and I'll put you on a team with somebody who's stronger so that you can learn from them. Okay? All right. I'll see everybody next week.